Today on the podcast, we are talking all about heart health. And what a great time! February is Heart Health Month. Today, we're looking at why it actually matters, what's misunderstood, and what you can start doing today to change your heart health outcome. Today, I'm joined by a repeat guest because she's just that good. And her information, I feel like, is so pertinent to women our age, to people our age, and how important it is to really pay attention to your heart health. Michelle is a preventive cardiology dietitian and the founder of Entirely Nourished, where she helps people lower cardiovascular risk, improve cholesterol and blood pressure, and support your metabolic health using evidence-based nutrition that works in your real life. She also serves on the Forbes Health Advisory Board and the National Menopause Foundation's Medical Advisory Committee. She's got a new cookbook coming out, and I'm definitely going to grab this one. It's called Simple Meal Solutions for High Blood Pressure. That's set to be released in April of 2026. I think pre-sales are on now. I will confirm that with her, but definitely go to my links in the description below and order your copy, pre-order that, because it's recipes, simple ideas that can really change the trajectory of your own health. So today we're cutting through the noise that surrounds heart health, and we're giving you practical, everyday solutions to help improve yours. Let's welcome Michelle to the podcast. Michelle, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. You're a repeat guest for a reason, because the content that you bring, like, it just seems to always be so relevant to women, especially as we're in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. It's like we don't really think about our heart health in our 20s, 30s as much unless we have an issue. And then all of a sudden it becomes super relevant, right? I think a lot of men know that heart disease is one of the top killers for men, but it's also for women as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to dive deeper and empower more and more women to take control earlier. And earlier is right now. I think a lot of times I get so many messages saying, "Oh, I'm 55 and I'm 60. Is it too late to be proactive in my heart health?" I'm like,
Right.
"What are you talking about? That's a
This is the time.
perfect time." So I'm so happy to be here.
That's awesome. What is new in this whole field? Is there anything that that's up and coming? Is there anything that we really need to be paying attention to? Is there anything that you're excited about in this field of heart health?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times, like, take a step back. Like, why do we care about heart health?
Yeah.
We care about heart health because we want to live a long and healthy life. We want to live a life with good quality, right? We want to be able to do the things as we age and to be independent and to live life, right? And what we don't seem to recognize is that if we don't take care of our heart now, then later it compensates. And that's when we decrease quality of life. There was actually a really cool recent paper that was a joint commission of the American Heart Failure Society of America, plus the American Society of Preventive Cardiology, of which I'm a part of, made a joint statement mentioning how heart failure is preventable.
Hmm.
And, most people don't think about heart failure. They're like, what's heart failure? Until they're symptomatic. They have
Yeah.
shortness of breath. They can't walk so much. They have fluid retention. They're bedbound. They're fatigued. They need a heart transplant. But it's preventable. And I
Hmm.
don't think a lot of people recognize that because heart
Mhm.
failure is silently bruised. You don't feel it, right? You could say, I exercise and I eat clean. I don't eat a lot of ultra processed foods. My heart's fine. But that you have to take a step back and say, you know what? Heart disease can still brew in any body shape. Heart disease can still brew if you're athletic. What are your numbers? What's your blood pressure? What is your cholesterol and your advanced cholesterol numbers? What about inflammation? What about blood sugar? These are all cardiometabolic risk factors. And I like to explain it in a very simple way. When there's excess, when there's higher levels of these values in your blood, your heart has to work harder to pump blood throughout the body, right? And it compensates. And so that can lead to heart failure. There are many stages of heart failure. And
Mhm.
when it's in stage A or B, it's highly preventable and reversible. When we get to stage C and D, where we become symptomatic, that's when it's harder to regulate because our heart is compensating so much. So if we can help bring all of those excess things, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, and inflammation, and reduce it, and it's not in the blood vessel in high levels, we're allowing the blood to do, our heart to do its job, blood to flow easily throughout the body, and that's the goal, right? So most people don't think about heart in the aspect of, all its functions, because we take it almost for granted until something comes up,
Yeah.
right? So and so we need to be aware that, hey, we can reduce 80 to 90% of heart disease,
Wow.
but it has to be on our radar. And that means we have to be proactive as women. We can't wait until our levels get so high that they need medication. No, what is my blood levels? What is the trends? Is it been going up during menopause? Why? How can I improve these? We can shift our dietary choices to improve all of these values. But we first, and I find the empowerment piece comes from knowing your numbers and then realizing, what do I need to prioritize to help improve these values to protect my heart?
Yeah, this is the where that old adage, the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. That's where it comes into play, right? Like it's like today, pay attention. I was looking on your Instagram the other day just in preparation for this, and you did a little testimonial of one of your clients' numbers and how they jumped from quite high in the LDL cholesterol, low in her HDL. I mean, everything changed after about 6 months, I think it was, of just changing nutrition and how powerful that was. You were so excited about it. I'm like, oh, I love that she's so excited about it. But it is exciting because things could shift if you make some of these changes. So let's jump into that. What sorts of things are we looking to change, to add in, to possibly take out of our diet in order to optimize heart health?
Yeah, I like to look at swaps. I think a lot of times we look at, hey, remove this. But when we look at the research and the data, to have the most impact, you actually really want to assess, what can I swap for what? So,
Yeah.
for example, saturated fat, a high saturated fat diet increases atherogenic cholesterol. So, what do I mean by that? Why do we care about cholesterol? One step back. We care about cholesterol because if we have high levels of plaque forming cholesterol, which is called atherogenic cholesterol, it is more likely to make plaque in your arteries. We need those atherogenic cholesterol part lipoproteins to start the atherosclerotic process. So if you have high levels of those, they can easily penetrate into the arterial wall and make plaque. Plaque
Mhm.
hardens our arteries, it makes our arteries more narrow, makes our heart overwork, and can increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes because they can clog the arteries, they can cause a blood clot to rupture and block blood flow to the heart or the brain. We want to prevent that. So one thing we do is lower that atherogenic cholesterol, your ApoB, your apolipoprotein B. We want to improve that. Okay. So when we look at dietary changes, one of those things is saturated fat. Saturated fat can basically clog up the LDL receptors on the liver. If the receptors on the liver are clogged up, the LDL receptors are clogged up, then we cannot actually, recycle and break down LDL cholesterol. So more goes into the bloodstream and the liver makes more ApoB. Okay, so we want to reduce saturated fat. But in our research, we actually see that even if you just remove saturated fat, you're not going to have as big of an impact as if you replace it with unsaturated fat.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
because unsaturated fat increases LDL receptors. It helps make HDL more functional to do its job. So if HDL is more functional to do its job, it's going to help recycle more LDL. We're going to help lower that atherogenic cholesterol. Okay, so an example, right? If someone has a lot of coconut oil in their diet, or they're using coconut oil as their main source of fat, we want to swap that for olive oil.
Right.
Okay,
Wow.
so that's an option. When we look at red meat consumption, if you have a lot of red meat that's high in fat, the marbled steaks, you want to swap that for more like omega-3 rich fatty fish, like salmon and sardines and mackerel. That's what we're looking for. So we're looking for swaps, not complete reduction or elimination, because then we're not getting the best benefit in terms of optimizing our cardiometabolic health.
Okay, I just learned something. I didn't realize that the unsaturated fats actually elevate. Is it elevating the HDL?
It's making it more functional.
More
So
functional.
HDL elevation, we see in the research that especially in menopausal women, if you just have a high HDL, especially if it's above 80, it could indicate inflammation. So we
Mm,
used to say, oh, higher HDL, the better. That's outdated. Now we want to make it more functional so that it could do its job. Because having a higher HDL but a high LDL is not protective because your high LDL is still can cause plaque in your arteries. What we're trying to do is make HDL more functional to help lower that LDL. And so the HDL functionality plays a bigger role than
okay.
just elevation of HDL alone.
I made that swap after having you on last time. I did a swap from because, we have heard that coconut oil is a health product, health food. And so I think years ago, a lot of us switched to coconut oil. And in fact, for years and years and years, I've made my granola. I make a homemade granola every week with coconut oil. And then I switched to olive oil. But yeah. So what about coconut oil? If we don't want high saturated fat levels, is this something that we need to eliminate out of our diet for good? And is olive oil, you said, is a good replacement for that? So talk to us about coconut oil because I don't understand. I wanted it to be good, but it sounds like it's not that great.
Yeah, so coconut oil is high in saturated fat. And so we do want to be mindful of it. If someone loves coconut oil, though, it's important to add that nuance of, okay, you can still include it, but we need to add it into your saturated fat allotment
Yeah.
for the day
Allotment.
so that
Yeah.
your body can, process it well. So if you love the taste of coconut oil or coconut products, you want to be mindful of the volume that you're using so that it could stay within your saturated fat allotment. And that's really the important component. So if you change your granola and you're like, you know what, Michelle, I actually feel more satisfied and I enjoy it more with the coconut oil versus olive oil, no worries. Let's just make sure that that volume that you're consuming is not over, it's not going over your saturated fat allotment.
That makes sense. And just for practical ideas for our listeners here, can you name some more foods that are higher on the saturated fat level and then some that are lower that we could swap in?
Yeah, so like butter, whole fat dairy. Whole fat dairy is controversial, but it does have that level of saturated fat. Palm oil is high in saturated fat as well. You'd be surprised if you kind of looked into what you're eating. It kind of can sneak into a lot of different
Yeah.
products that you
Yeah.
wouldn't think is high. So be mindful of that. And then also on the unsaturated fat, it's your nuts, your seeds, your olive oil, it's your fish, your omega-3 rich fish specifically. That's where we're trying to swap. Your avocado, we're going to try to swap in. Those
Yeah.
unsaturated fats, though, are not like free foods. It's not like,
Oh, that's
okay,
right.
I can
Yeah. It's
have
not a free for all, folks.
right. It's not like, okay, now I can have three avocados instead. It's still every type of fat will have some level of saturated fat. So at the end of
Mm.
the day, it's really about how much your body needs and how do you look at that from a whole perspective of your daily allotment.
As a heart health dietitian, I'd love to actually get your insight into some of that controversy, especially as we saw the food pyramid, the new food pyramid just come out, right? And at the top was a lot of foods that contain higher saturated fat. What are your thoughts on that? I posted something like that in one of my stories, and instantly, probably three or four people messaged me and they're like, "Ooh, I hope you don't get political." I'm like, this is about nutrition here, folks. Like, aside from politics, I live in Canada, so thank goodness. But, I'd love to hear your insight because I think it's important as well.
Well, I think it's important to recognize like what is the main message and kind of dive a little bit deeper further from that, right? So I think the good part of it is yes, we should be eating more whole foods, more real foods. I love that, right? Love the idea of really emphasizing, hey, get more vegetables in, get more fruits in, get more lean animal protein if that's what you want. Get in the whole foods. That's what should be emphasized. I think that's great. What was really tricky though is that if you look in the actual paperwork, so beyond that upside down triangle, first, the upside down triangle was kind of a surprise to see, to be honest, because we
Mm.
haven't used that in over 15 years. So it almost felt like it was like a mocking of like the triangle we used 15 years ago that's no longer being used. But if you look at what's written in the actual guidelines, it says that saturated fat should be less than 10% of your daily intake, which is right. The thing that is a little bit hard for people to implement is if you see red meat on the top, you see a stick of butter on the food pyramid, you see a lot of whole food dairy, and that's what's being advertised. It's really hard to get less than 10% of your saturated fat with that notion. So, like, if you're having all of those higher fat whole foods that they're promoting, the saturated fat can't really be less than 10% of your caloric intake.
Okay, that makes sense. So you said 10% is a good measure of daily allotment for saturated fat. So
Mhm.
reading those labels, folks, is really, really important again. Cholesterol gets a lot of attention, of course. We just spoke about it, but can you talk to us again about triglycerides and just what to look at when we're looking at that on our blood panel?
Yeah, triglycerides are super important and oftentimes they're not really talked about. To
Mhm.
really understand kind of your risk, I like to look at things in a couple of different aspects. One is what is your risk will determine your targets. Okay, if you have a high risk of cardiovascular disease, like you have high LP little a, you have high calcium score, you have known plaque in your carotid arteries, you've had an event, your markers are going to be much lower than someone who is at low risk. So we need to know what your risk is. Okay, so for triglycerides, that's really looking at less than 150 milligrams per deciliter in lower risk populations and less than 100 milligrams per deciliter in the higher risk populations. When someone has high triglycerides, especially when it's accompanied by low HDL cholesterol, it can be a sign of insulin resistance. It can be a sign of metabolic dysfunction. Essentially, your body is unable to break down the fats and put it into the cells, so it's accumulating in your blood, leading to residual cholesterol. And it can change the shape of the atherogenic lipoproteins to invade the arterial wall more aggressively. So we want to optimize your triglycerides, and
Mhm.
it really responds most to diet. It doesn't really respond that well to medication therapy. So we really want to target it through what you're eating and your meal timing and eating to your circadian rhythm and ensuring that we're addressing insulin resistance to help lower that down.
Mhm. Going back to the client that I read about on your Instagram, what sorts of things did she change in order to move her numbers so dramatically?
I speak about a lot of my clients, so I'm not sure which one you're talking about,
Yeah.
but I recently spoke about one of my clients who was on a vegan diet and her levels were very high. And her physician had told her, oh, it's genetic, but it only changed during menopause. So she's like, that's an interesting kind of component. And
Right.
what we did change was really looking at the volumes of what she was eating, her pairings of what she was eating, her meal timing. She was working all day and kind of grazing throughout the day and never really achieving satiety. She wasn't meeting her protein needs. She wasn't meeting her soluble fiber needs. She wasn't meeting her potassium, magnesium. There were so many things where she wasn't really meeting. She felt like, well, I'm on a vegan diet, so shouldn't that help with my heart health? The issue is well, what are you eating? That is the question that's going to help,
Right.
right? So she went to her doctor, told her she was following a vegan diet and that she was, doing everything that she could. And I don't know why it changed. She's like, well, he's like, well, if you're following a vegan diet and it's not moving, it's genetic. And it's like, well, he never
Uh,
asked the details of what are you eating and all of those other aspects.
yeah.
She also came to me with what she described as very sticky bowel movements. So like she's like it would be she would have multiple bowel movements. They were very like messy. She was uncomfortable with them and she's like I don't know why that's changing. And
Mm.
for me, when I'm assessing cholesterol metabolism, the other aspect that I look at is your bowel movements. Are you having good, effective bowel movements? Because that's one of the way we excrete cholesterol. And so that was something we worked on. So ensuring that we were getting the right volume of insoluble to soluble fiber. I
Right.
think a lot of times we talk about, oh, you need X amount of fiber in a day, but a lot of people are just eating your vegetables, which is great, but it's primarily insoluble. So you're not getting the actual soluble to bind cholesterol and excrete it. So
Mhm.
really honing into the details and also ensuring quantities, right? I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. When you actually count the grams, it's not where they should be.
Yeah.
Or, I don't really have a lot of saturated fat. I don't eat red meat. I don't eat full fat dairy. Okay. but where are the other components coming in from, right? Like she would snack on nuts all day. She
Sure.
made this really, she made a bread with almond flour in it, a lot of saturated fat for her. So when we swapped those, we saw such a strong reduction. She was surprised. She was like, how did this happen? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, we changed a lot of things. We got your gut health where it needed to be. We looked at saturated fat, we looked at soluble fiber, and we looked at nutrient adequacy, right? She was taking all these supplements, but she didn't need all of them. She needed
Right.
some of them on a vegan diet, but we helped to optimize the actual amount of nutrients that she needed so her body can do what it needed to do and not strain itself.
Well, don't we do that? We're just like, she's taking this, I got to take that. And then people's cupboards are just full of supplements that are probably not necessary if you just tweaked your diet a bit.
Right.
There's so
But
many things here I just want to jump into. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
one more thing about that. Remember, I talked about your your liver having a central role in LDL metabolism. If you over supplement, what are
Yeah.
you doing? You're taxing your liver to do its job. It can't do the primary functions it's meant to do. So a lot of times we think, oh, well, this supplement said it'll help my liver. This supplement, your liver is its own detoxifying unit. Give the food what it needs, it will do its job better and it won't strain, so it can actually do better with cholesterol metabolism. So it's not, I'm not against supplements. I'm very intentional with supplements. And
Yes.
I think it's important that when you are thinking about supplements, you have someone evaluate what you're taking alongside your diet, your labs, your medications, your medical history. If someone doesn't know your labs, your medication, your diet, what you're eating, they cannot suggest a supplement for you, period. So
Yeah.
this fact that everyone's like, oh, I'm taking this and this, and I'm like, but look at what you don't need that. And so that's putting strain on your body. Let your body do what it needs to do and it will thrive.
That's a really great piece of advice because, I think it's just so common. I feel like every day I get an invite to do a collaboration with some supplement company. And now it's all supplements geared to menopausal women. So just branded and charged more. And I just think so much of it's ridiculous. My mom sent me something the other day that contained a bunch of proprietary blends. And I'm like, no, mom, you don't need that. Like when you look at what's included in this concoction, I'm like, you don't need any of that. That's not going to work. Just eat this, eat real food.
Right. But it can also do harm. That's the thing that
Right.
people don't
hmm
realize.
hmm Yeah, that's scary. Okay, so many things I want to jump into here. We talked about fat, but I do want to look at protein, fiber, and then and then you mentioned volume, pairing, and timing, and nutrient adequacy. So I want to look at all of that because I think our audience would benefit from this conversation. So protein. Last year, 2025, year of the protein. It was definitely having its moment. I think 2026 will be year of fiber, which is looks like it's coming up. But let's talk about protein. How does high protein eating intersect with our heart health? And yeah, just give us your insight on amounts as a heart health dietitian. Like if for someone who really wants to improve heart health, not necessarily build muscle. So yeah, talk to us about that.
Yeah, we need protein. And I think that it's not that we don't, it's not, no, we don't want too little. We don't want too high amounts of protein because both can be hard on our system, right? Our heart is a central organ of our body. It puts blood flow through all our organs. So we don't ever look at it as silos. When we look at optimizing heart health, it's optimizing functional aging, right? Because, for instance, osteoporosis and heart disease are very connected and correlated. People who
Mm.
have osteoporosis have 4 times the increased risk of cardiovascular disease. We see
Okay,
it over
sorry, I'm going to stop you there. Why is that?
because there's so many common factors. When you think about when we're looking at bone metabolism, for instance, when you don't eat enough calcium, and this goes into nutrient adequacy, when you don't eat enough calcium, what happens? Your heart needs calcium for it to contract. So without enough calcium in your blood, you would die,
Mm.
period. Okay. So we have a reservoir. Our reservoir in our bones is a calcium. So if we don't eat enough,
Gotcha.
our
Yeah.
parathyroid hormone tells our bones, hey, can you give out some
Borrow.
calcium into the blood vessel? Let's borrow some. It's not just a simple borrow. It's not like, oh, give me some sugar from my neighbor. No, it's a inflammatory process.
Yeah.
Osteoporosis is actually a metabolic bone disorder.
Mm.
Okay, so when we have high blood pressure, if we have diabetes, if we have high cholesterol, it actually can cause decrease in bone formation. There are many different signaling pathways that take place. So we have a lot of directional biological pathways that connect and correlate when we have metabolic disorders that cause calcium to leach out of our bones, leading to weakened bones and osteoporosis, etc. There's the inflammation piece as well. And that inflammation piece can also link to atherosclerosis, right? So when we have this inflammation from our bones, it's in our blood vessels now, and that's also causing some level of inflammation. So we know that there's this big correlation, and there is also this pathway of vascular calcification that also coincides with calcium being taken out of our bones. So there's a lot of connections here, and especially in women, right? So when we go through menopause, estrogen decreases, we're getting more weakened bones. All of our metrics are if cholesterol is increased, blood pressure is increased, diabetes. You're looking at a storm for
Yeah.
osteoporosis and heart disease to happen
Mm.
coincide. So
Mhm.
it's all related, but don't let that make you panic and say, oh my goodness, there's so much I can't do anything. You can do so much.
Yeah.
Make sure you're getting enough calcium. Make sure you're eating enough calcium, having vitamin D, your magnesium, your zinc, there's so many aspects of nutrient adequacy that connects with our heart and also our bones and our kidneys and our liver and it's all connected. And so that's why nutrient adequacy to me is a hallmark of a heart healthy diet because it supports your heart, but supports all aspects of your heart health to promote functional aging.
Mhm. Okay. I like what you said about the calcium there. I actually just looked up high calcium foods the other day. I already consume on a daily basis Greek yogurt, chia seeds, but I want to add in more kale, bok choy. So some of those vegetables that have higher calcium amounts in them. So protein, it's necessary. We need it. Do you have recommended amounts or a range of amounts for women wanting to improve their heart?
Yeah, so we like to do it about 1.2 to 1.4, 1.6 grams per kilogram
Okay,
of body
that's good.
weight, which coincides with the new dietary
That's
guidelines,
right.
right? They increase protein intake. I am happy with that. I do think that we were a little bit lower on previous guidelines. That was really to prevent deficiency. Now,
Mm.
as we age, we know we need a little bit more. But it's important to calculate that accurately. I think a lot of people calculate it per pound and not per kilogram, which is very different. And so we need to make sure, because when you look at it that way, on average, people need between 3 to 6 ounces, 3 times of protein, 3 to 4 times a day.
Mhm.
It's really not that much
No.
compared to a lot of people taking protein and saying, hey, we need 2 pounds per 2 grams per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
That's too much on the kidneys and too much on the heart. So we know we need kind of that good amount to help.
Let's talk about fiber. Again, I think fiber is going to get a good rap in 2026.
Hope so.
Why is it so protective for our heart health? And then why is it so challenging to get that adequate amount in without increasing calories?
It really is more about strategically adding in. So if you
Yeah.
think about all the high fiber foods, they don't just include fiber, right? So you could say, oh, well, I'll just take a fiber supplement, but you're missing key elements, right? So
Mm.
what's fiber? Fiber is found in so many different foods, from our vegetables, our fruits, our whole grains, our beans, our legumes. All of those foods contain antioxidants and plant-based compounds that help to protect against oxidative stress and inflammation and help to support gut health. So every time you eat, your gut will create a metabolite. And that metabolite will either be protective or non protective for your cardiovascular well being. It's actually a really cool kind of new research aspect called nutribalomics that I really love and love to see. So when we're having different types of fiber, we're also supporting our gut microbiome, which plays a role in blood pressure, which plays a role in our vascular health and in our overall well being. So we do need that in there. And so our fiber rich foods help us with that. I think a lot of times people, when they're thinking about, oh, I can't get enough fiber, it may be because they have a kind of block in their mind against carbohydrates, especially when they're trying to
Mhm.
think about weight loss, right? So they're like, oh, I can't have the beans, I can't have the whole grains. Those are two of the top sources of fiber. And so a lot of times, especially when people work with me, they're like, Michelle, I thought I would gain weight with adding these in, and I've lost weight, and I can't believe it. And I trusted you, and I did it, and it was great. I think that's where we have that gap, right? So you can eat all the green leafy vegetables, really hard to meet your fiber needs with just leafy vegetables and just vegetables alone. You really need to be looking in at the aspect of, do you have your nuts and seeds? Do you have your beans, your legumes, your whole grains that actually add in a substantial volume of fiber?
Mhm. Yeah, and for fat loss, weight loss, it's overall daily calories that are really important. So fitting that into your allotment is totally doable.
They're also more satiating too.
Yeah, you don't
So
have to
it
eat as much.
helps to avoid overeating later if you balance it well. I'm not saying go have 2 cups of oatmeal and that and like for breakfast. You need to balance it. Make sure you're having it with protein. Have half a cup of oatmeal, have protein, like add the Greek yogurt in there, add your low sugar fiber like your berries, add some nuts and seeds. You will be more satiated, which will help you get to the next meal without grazing in between.
Do you find it hard to get 25 plus grams of fiber a day?
No, and I actually recommend a lot more than 25 grams. 25
Okay, do
is
tell,
very
do
low.
tell.
So if you look at trials of reduction of cholesterol, we know the higher someone can tolerate fiber, the more actual reduction of their cholesterol levels are. So it really depends on your starting place, but 25 is the bare minimum. You should really be targeting much higher, closer to 40, 50, depending on where you start. If you have 5 grams of fiber as your daily intake, please don't go to 40
No.
tomorrow. You will be so uncomfortable. You need to
Yeah.
go slow. You need to titrate slowly so your body can digest it well and you don't have any GI distress. My big tip is this: if you start adding in fiber and you become constipated, you likely went too fast.
Mm,
The whole goal of the fiber also is to have good bowel movements. It's a really good
yes.
indication of heart health. So if you're adding in fiber and you're having good bowel movements, every 3 to 4 days, add another serving of fiber until you reach your goal of where you can maintain it and it's doable for you.
Are you a beans, lentils gal every day? Something, some sort of bean or lentil every day?
Yeah, I mean, plant-based protein is a big hallmark, but it doesn't have to be the only component. I really feel like you need to find which ones you like and make it tasty and make it
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Mhm.
But it really does help with getting in a lot of good nutrients and increasing your soluble fiber intake as well.
I like to just rinse a can of mixed beans. So I've got a good variety in there. Like they have the 6 bean blend that you can buy. You can make that from raw or a can and just rinse it. And then just add that to my salads. Just, sprinkle it on top. And then it's just a little extra. And it's super easy and pretty cheap to add that as well. Let's
Yeah.
talk about, you talked about these metrics that changed your clients' blood panel, volume, pairing, and timing. How important are those elements, and could you address each one of those?
Yeah. So we need to realize that our bodies work on circadian clocks. It doesn't work on when you decide, lunchtime is at 1 o'clock, dinner is at 6 o'clock. Your body, if you listen to it, tells you, I'm hungry, feed me.
Yeah.
But the problem is, for so long, we've ignored it, right? We've got to work. This is when you eat. Oh, I should do intermittent fasting. I'm not going to eat, but I'm starving. I had a client whose doctor told him to go intermittent fasting, and he's a speaker. He told me he would faint when he would speak because he didn't eat anything and he
Right.
still continued to do it. And I was like, well, your body is telling you it needs food, it needs fuel. So your body really works best when you fuel it appropriately. Eating within half an hour to an hour of waking up, unless you're working out, right? If you're working out and you do better without food in your stomach, fine. But you should then be eating 30 to 60 minutes after that workout. It tells your body, hey, I'm up and I'm ready to go, right? You fuel it and you should be eating. You should eat every 3 to 4 hours based on your hunger skills. So your body tells you, I'm slightly hungry, I'm going to eat. And then when it tells you I'm slightly satisfied, you stop. And so you're eating in a 12-hour window, but earlier when you're more insulin sensitive and your body's able to process the food more effectively. So you're eating from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. When we eat too late, that is really hard on our body to digest because we are more insulin resistant in those later hours. If
Mhm.
we don't eat because we're busy, 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 and then we finally feed ourselves 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, your body goes to starvation mode. And when you start eating, it's not going to tell you when it's full. It's like, keep feeding me. I'm hungry. You're not, I don't know. Can't trust you. You want your body to trust you to know I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. You want to wake up hungry and you want to be hungry every 3 to 4 hours and answer that so that you're really giving your body the nutrients. There
Mhm.
is no way you can get all of the vitamins and minerals your body needs through food, which is the most effective way, in one meal. No way. So we need to be eating in that way of honoring our body and stopping when we're slightly satisfied so it can digest the food, put it into the cell where it belongs so that it can process it better, right? If all of a sudden you starve yourself and then you overeat, even if you eat very healthy, your body has to digest it and it's difficult. It adds more strain and more stress on the cardiovascular system, which we want to avoid.
So that's yes, volume, pairing, timings, and nutrient adequacy. That's excellent. Alcohol and heart health. Let's talk about that, especially in menopause. Is the one glass of wine good for heart health? Message outdated. I already know what you're going to say, but let's say it for the audience.
There is no amount of alcohol that is good for your heart, right? We used to say, oh, drink a glass of wine and it's good for your heart. Now we know that even in that glass of wine, the resveratrol content that's found in red wine is not even really there. It's
Right,
oxidized by the time you drink it.
right.
The issue that I see with a lot of my clients that when they go through menopause and they're drinking, they see a direct correlation to their sleep. They see a direct negative
Yeah.
correlation to their blood pressure. They see a negative correlation to the food choices they make to their mood, to a lot of their symptoms. And they can feel like, ugh, I know when I drink even a sip of wine, these things are going to happen. So awareness is key. Right. A lot of times, I don't know when you're going to air this, but in January, people do dry January. And they're like, I'm not going to
Hmm.
drink at all for January. And I go, okay, but I want you to pay attention to what changes when you don't drink alcohol. Does your sleep improve? Does your appetite improve in terms of regulating, oh, I'm hungry and I'm satiated? How do you feel? Like, what are those symptoms? Because you will see a direct connection when you drink versus when you don't drink. So that's really the big thing. We also see that it's actually it was named in 2025 type 1 carcinogen.
Carcinogen. I saw
And
that. Yeah.
so we really
It's
do
crazy.
need to take evaluation of our wine. A lot of times people tell me, Michelle, we recently retired. It's a time where me and my husband catch up over a glass of wine. And I'm like, that's lovely. And I don't want to take that from you. I think it's beautiful that you catch up with your partner and you have that time. How do we change the alcoholic beverage, right? Do we do a
Hmm.
mocktail? Do we put something nice in a different glass that's enjoyable? How do we still allow for good communication and bonding, but without the alcohol? Because
Hmm.
another thing happens during menopause that many people don't connect with nutrition is heart palpitations and atrial fibrillation. And when we have alcohol, a lot of times that increases the risk of AFib as well. And it dehydrates us and it can impair nutrient absorption. So a lot of times when you drink alcohol, the nutrients from your food are not being actually better absorbed. They're being blocked in terms of absorption in your gut. So we know that there's no benefit, but again, look at what's realistic for you. Right? If you drink a glass of wine twice a week and you feel fine, it doesn't change your sleep, it doesn't change your mood, you feel good with it, okay. But if you're drinking a lot, like 2 glasses, 3 glasses at a time, a whole bottle of wine, we really need to reevaluate that because we know that there are detrimental effects from a heart
Hmm.
health perspective
Yeah.
and just an
Cancer.
overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
really we want to take inventory of that.
I was at the dentist last week and she was doing the cleaning. She goes, "Do you drink a lot of red wine?" I'm like, "No." I was offended. I'm like, "No." She goes, "Blueberries?" I'm like, "Yes, I eat blueberries every day." Yes, that's the same. I
That's
was like, okay, now I'm proud. I went from offended to proud. No. Let's talk about blood pressure. You mentioned that because it was so important. The last time you were on, I know you highlighted being really diligent with your blood pressure testing of yourself, buying your own unit for your home. I've been doing it very regularly. And I love what you said about ensuring that your normal is normal for you, right? Like just tracking it so that you know when there's oscillations in your blood pressure and then to pay attention. So let's talk about the importance again of monitoring blood pressure and knowing your numbers.
Yeah, so blood pressure is one of the most important metrics because it can help us help to address things earlier.
Yeah.
You don't feel high blood pressure, but what it can do silently is actually really scary. It can lead to cognitive dementia. Most people don't think of that, right? It can lead to cognitive impairment as we age. It can lead to chronic kidney disease. It can lead to a stroke. It can cause plaque to form in the arteries by causing a micro tear in the arterial wall. It can cause aortic root dilations or abdominal dissections. What does that mean? Basically, when your heart is pumping blood, you have a whole system of arteries to bring the blood to flow. If you have high blood pressure that's not controlled and it's not on your radar, that constant ability of your heart to pump blood is going to cause these bulges that can rupture and cause life-threatening events. It can increase the risk of heart failure. I can go on and on.
Yeah.
But it's controllable.
Yeah.
If you can control it, but you have to know. And there's so many people who say, Michelle, I get anxious looking at my blood pressure cuff.
No.
And I
Yeah.
say, I get it. I get it. You're probably in the what if state. What if it's high? Am I having a heart attack? Am I having a stroke? Should I go to the ER? All this. And I go, you got to become friends with the blood pressure cuff by saying, you know what? You may be high. You may be low. I'm just going to take you. You take the blood pressure and you have an action plan. If it's high, what are you going to do? Right? Or maybe that's when you go for a walk, or you drink some hibiscus tea, or you have a high potassium snack. What can we do in those moments to lower it? Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
one, right? So you have to have a plan. But high blood pressure can happen for many different reasons. And once we understand why, then we can tackle it and it can stay optimized. And you're going to have such an impactful aspect of your in control of your heart health. But you won't know unless you test it. So it's something I work on with a lot of my clients, the health anxiety around the blood pressure. But once you realize, wow, my blood pressure did come down. Oh my goodness, I notice when I do this and do this, my blood pressure is in optimal range. Like it gives you that control, that confidence that changes your anxiety into empowerment. So you
Right.
need to be checking it so that you know, and then implementing change so that we see it come down.
I meant to bring my cuff down here to do a little demo. Do you have yours in that room there?
I do. Blah, 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 blah. I can find it.
I'm just going to get her to grab her cuff because I'd love if you're watching on YouTube, and if not, you can pop over to YouTube to watch this. But I'd love for you to just show us, okay, we're at home. What are some important tips to remember if we're taking our blood pressure at home? So go ahead and show us, and then name those steps.
Yeah. Okay. So here is your blood pressure cuff. Okay. You can use any blood pressure cuff that's clinically validated. So if you
Mhm.
go to a website called validatebp.org,
Okay.
you can see all the ones that are clinically validated to make sure that they're accurate. So the reason why we do that is because when you go to the doctor's office, they put the stethoscope underneath and they do it in different technique. They're trying to mimic that at home without the stethoscope so that we need to
Mhm.
make sure, hey, are they matched? Are they matched from a clinical standard to ensure accuracy, which is what we want. So you do that. Then you actually want to, when you want to determine, should I do my left arm? Should I do my right arm? You want to actually test both. You want the
Okay.
first time test both because the one that's higher is the one that you should always be testing. If you have one arm if you have a difference of 10 points higher on one arm than the other, I want you to do further testing to just rule out some vascular conditions. You can
Mm.
ask your doctor to check your ankle brachial index, which basically looks at rules out peripheral artery disease. So it checks your upper to lower extremity blood pressure to see the good blood flow from the top to the bottom. We want to make sure we understand why there's such a big gap. But if it's
Okay.
a couple numbers, that's okay. Just choose the one that's a higher arm. Okay,
Okay.
sometimes they're very equal distance, sometimes they're not. Then you want to make sure that you have a back, like a supported back of your chair.
Sure.
You
Okay.
want to kind of use that, sit back, put your feet on the ground. Okay. Um, and then you take your cuff, and you'll see on your cuff, there should be like basically little arrows that tell you kind of the positioning. But you essentially want this little doohickey thing to be centered right in the middle this way. Okay. You want to put this above about an inch above your elbow. And then you're going to lean. You want to put your arm down on a surface. You
Yeah.
do this because you want that your arm to be in alignment with your heart to give an
Right.
accurate reading. A wrist monitor is inaccurate. Do not use a wrist
Right.
monitor.
Good point.
Okay. And then when you test, you don't want to be talking. You don't want to be doing anything. You kind of want to just be sitting. And you don't want to have to, don't run to your blood pressure cuff. Like, make sure that you're in a good, like, breath so that you're not getting a falsely elevated. Like, you
Right.
don't want to meditate before because you're not walking around meditating, but like, you want to be in a comfortable kind of space. And then you just turn it on and the cuff will get snug and then it will release and it will tell you the number directly on the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Do we do it like 3 times? Is it the best out of three, or is once enough?
So, there are like, oh, the first time you might be nervous. So, average all three. That's fine to do and often is advised. My goal, though, is for that first one to be what I want it to be.
Right. Okay. Good
Right?
point. Good
So
point.
you
Yeah.
can definitely do the average because sometimes we are a little bit nervous, and the second and third, we're a little bit more relaxed. So if that's something that you recognize, definitely do the average. I think that that's good. But also, timing matters. So let's say you check it in the morning, your
Yeah.
morning blood pressure is optimal, less than 120 over 80. You've done that for about a week and it's always been in optimal condition. Amazing. Let's move to the middle of the day. If you notice that at 2 p.m. every day your blood pressure goes up by 30 points, ooh, what's going on here? How can I lower it? Right? Then, if we lower it, then after a week of optimal levels, move to the evening. So you do want to
Okay.
take it at varying times of the day to see when it's going up and down so we can intervene and moderate. I just don't want you to become obsessed with your blood pressure
Yeah.
monitor. So,
Yeah.
the guidelines say check it twice a day, like morning and evening. I like to say check it in the morning, if that, and let's work on that. Then let's move to one and then the other, and then kind of get into a routine of at least checking it once a day so that you're not, I don't want you to get health anxiety. I want to lower that health anxiety. And I find when we go step by step, it's more empowering.
I find that as well. I feel very empowered knowing what's going on in my body for sure. We're going to end with a little fun, fast fire question here. I don't know if your answers will be fast, but you can go ahead and give us more details if you feel it's needed. But let's go. Fast fire. Olive oil or butter?
Olive oil,
Butter does taste good though on sourdough bread. I guess I could put olive oil in there. Oatmeal or eggs?
oatmeal,
Hmm. Daily walk or high intensity intervals?
both.
Hmm. I remember, folks, this is for heart health, optimizing heart health. Red wine or mocktail?
Mocktail.
Yeah.
Depends on the mocktail, though. That's what
Okay. Because some are
depends.
so high in sugar.
Yeah,
Yeah. Low fat or full fat dairy?
low fat.
Yeah. Plant protein or animal protein?
Nah, I like to say we need more plant-based protein in general, but lean animal protein can definitely fit in a heart healthy diet too.
Okay. Salt restriction or potassium focus?
Potassium focus.
Okay. Actually, can you just quickly give us maybe the top three foods with high potassium in it so we can remember those?
There's so many.
So many. I
Um,
all I think of is bananas.
Most people do. Edamame,
Oh,
sweet
edamame, yes.
potatoes, beets, artichokes, yogurt, all good.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Tracking macros or plate method.
Combination.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because knowing what amounts you're having for your protein, your fiber, those are important numbers to know. Supplements first or food first?
Food first.
Mediterranean eating or a DASH diet?
Combination, but I like dash focus because of nutrient adequacy.
Okay. Can you explain to the audience what DASH is? I think most of us know what Mediterranean looks like.
Yeah, it's a dietary approaches to stop hypertension, and it focuses on having a adequate amount of calcium, potassium, and magnesium alongside a lot of the same principles of a Mediterranean diet. It's just more focused in on the nutrients that we want you to have
Right.
enough of to help optimize blood pressure.
Love it. And speaking of things to help us optimize blood pressure, this is the focus of your new cookbook. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I have a new cookbook coming out in April that is all about simple solutions to help lower blood pressure. So to
Mhm.
address high blood pressure. And it's just ways to get these recipes into your diet, get these nutrients into your diet. So one really cool part of it is on the bottom, I made sure to add in magnesium and potassium and calcium. So you actually see the milligrams per recipe so that you can get those into your diet.
Mm.
And it's all simple. So 30 minutes or less. I did this alongside my kids in the kitchen. So they're tested by my family. And I had a lot of fun cooking these things, but making them simple, tasty, delicious, and nutrient adequate.
That's awesome. Love it. Can't wait to grab a copy. And folks, I will link that below. Again, you can pre-order already. She's got links there. Michelle, where can people follow you and or work with you?
Yeah, check out my website, entirelynourished.com. On there, you can get a link to my Instagram, to my LinkedIn, to my email list. Check it out, read through some things, hope that it inspires you, empowers you, and educates you to improve your heart health one day at a time.
Wonderful. And like I said earlier, we have had Michelle on before, so I will also link those episodes if you want to go back and listen and get even further into optimizing heart health. Thank you so much again for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Now, folks, go move daily in your fitness, your wellness, your nutrition, and in your heart health. And we'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks.